All right. I think it's time. We're going to go ahead and get started. So I'll officially say hello, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Amy Verbovsky, and I am the program lead of community planning at the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Karen Morris, Director of Community Planning, Karen Slurso, the Associate Director of Livable Communities, and Andrew Svekla, Manager of the Office of Smart Growth. We're really excited to have you guys here today and are looking forward to a great discussion. There we go. Before we jump in, just a few kind of meeting logistics. Again, I said it earlier, please use the chat box and introduce yourself. We really want to know who's here with us today. And then please use the Q&A box to submit any questions for our speakers later in the program. And then I also just want to note that this meeting is being recorded. Here's what we'll cover today. So I'm going to start with a brief overview of DVRPC, and then Karen Morris will share how DVRPC supports a transit-oriented region. We'll then hear directly from our transit agencies on their TOD resources and programs. And after that, we have a packed panel of municipal all-stars facilitated by Andrew Svekla. We'll hear how folks are working with the transit agencies to implement TOD in their communities. And then we're going to wrap up with municipal updates. We want to hear what's going on in your communities. We're going to give you a brief chance to share something that's happening. And this is all going to happen in 90 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. So who is DVRPC? For the folks who aren't super familiar with us, we are the federally designated metropolitan planning organization for the greater Philadelphia region. We cover 2 states, 9 counties, 4 cities, 350 municipalities, and thousands of neighborhoods. We build consensus for a shared regional vision, enable database community-centered solutions, and help put plans into actions. We convene partners to work together to address the key issues that ultimately help to implement our long-range plan, which is called Update Connections 2050. And just a little bit more on that long-range plan. What we're showing you here is the vision that is in that long-range plan. And this is a vision of a greater Philadelphia region that provides a safe, modern, and multimodal transportation network, healthy and walkable communities, clean and affordable infrastructure and utility systems that are resilient to extreme weather, an innovative and connected economy, and a preserved and restored natural environment. And that really relates to all the work that we do. So we know that transportation, land use, and economic development are deeply interconnected. Our Livable Communities staff, which is housed within our Community Planning Division, addresses a wide range of municipal issues involving smart growth, community revitalization, economic development, and environmental planning and resilience. So this integrated approach allows DVRPC to better understand the broader impacts of transportation investments on communities across the region. To learn more about our work, we invite you to go to our website, dvrpc.org. And today you're going to hear more about how we're using our integrated approach to support development in and around our transit stations and our bus corridors, and how that ultimately supports the region's economy and livability. So with that, I'm going to ask Alyssa to launch a quick Zoom poll. We want to kind of get a better sense of who's in the room and what your familiarity is with TOD. So I think that is up now. We're looking at which describes your municipality's current approach to transit-oriented development. And if you are not working for a municipality, maybe, where you live, kind of take a different approach to that. All right. The answers are still rolling in. Okay, it looks like we're at a steady state, so I'll go ahead. If I end the poll, I think this shares it, right? So here we go. Okay, sharing the results. So it looks like, there's a good number that are actively planning or implement TOD. So 37%, that's great to hear. We're really glad that folks are exploring this and are here today to learn more. There are kind of another 30% that are exploring TOD, but early in the process. Welcome. We're also really glad you're here. And for the folks that are kind of in that, I'm not sure, still learning, we're also really glad that you want to come, that you came here today and we want to learn more. So thank you for joining us. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Karen Morris.
All right, great. Thank you, Amy. I am now going to attempt to share my screen. Let's see how this goes. All right, can you see that?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So, yes, I'm Karen Morris, the Director of Community Planning, and I'm excited to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, TOD, and the ways that DVRPC works with our partners to support TOD, as well as some tools and resources we've created, and then also just touch on briefly how TOD fits into that long range plan that Amy mentioned. But first, what is TOD? So it's an urban planning strategy to development that seeks to create dense, walkable, mixed-use communities around high-quality public transit. Great example is the lumberyard condos in Collingswood near their Paco station that used to be a lumberyard and is now a mixed-use, very successful development. But we know that TOD isn't a new idea, particularly in Philadelphia, that the streetcar suburbs and rail towns that sprung up in the 19th and early 20th century, the Main Line, for instance, really established the template for TOD in our region. It's also a flexible framework so that it operates at multiple scales. We often talk about individual developments as TODs at that building or development site. A great example of this is the Lansdale Station Apartments built next to the Lansdale SEPTA Regional Rail Station. And we did a plan actually back all the way back in 2004 at DVRPC, encouraging TOD next to this station. It also happens that we talk about it in the context of station areas and neighborhoods. And ultimately, we're looking to build neighborhoods around transit that reduce traffic, that improve public health, and that foster greater community identity. So you'll see here the Lansdale Station, the dot on the screen there, and then the infill next to their historic downtowns of the Lansdale Station apartments that were once just a surface parking lot. We know that TOD looks different, that it's not always one size fits all. Rather, it's a set of principles that can be flexibly applied, and that regardless of scale, it's really defined by this compact, dense design. Again, a mix of uses, that access to transit, creating more walkable, safe, and attractive public spaces. And key to it is also reducing parking because we generally have oversupplied parking in our communities. So as Amy mentioned, we have a long-range plan called Update Connections 2050. This is our blueprint for prioritizing $78 billion in capital transportation investments in the region out to 2050. And it considers future population growth, economic trends, environmental concerns, as well as tech advancements as much as we can out to 2050. And to really guide those investments in roadways, in transit, in bike and walking infrastructure, and other modes. So TOD fits perfectly into those five goal areas of that a multimodal transportation network, a connected economy, a walkable community, a preserved natural environment, and that reliable infrastructure. So key to this is one of our main projects, main maps. I see someone added a line there. One of our main maps that guides this vision is our centers and existing rail map, which identifies 176 centers in our region. Those are those pink areas where future growth is prioritized and where we think investment in more housing, infrastructure, and jobs will have the greatest impact. You'll see, obviously, our rail lines superimposed on top of that to show how it's grown. And those centers are based on both transit access as well as development density. So we have also done a lot of work, and I've worked on this for over 20 years, looking at how we can better identify and help our partners identify these TOD opportunities. So we did a few years back a report called Building on Our Strengths. It's both a report as well as a web map. And that highlights sort of the rich network of 322 transit stations in our region, and using a variety of inputs, looks at evaluating TOD readiness of those station areas. So we look at it through existing TOD orientation as well as future TOD potential. So looking at the real estate market, is there available land? Is there supportive planning and zoning? So I encourage you to look at this because it is an interactive tool on our website, and you can look up your station and it scores it on a range of 1 to 4 in terms of TOD readiness. We've also done a lot of station area plans over the years. We have done over 40 plans either in-house or that we've funded through our PA TCDI and New Jersey TCDI grant program that you'll hear more about today. And some of those were of entire transit lines, so more than 40 station areas. But a current one we're working on is the Pottstown station, which is a proposed station with proposed restoration of passenger rail by the Schuylkill River Passenger Rail Authority. That would be a line connecting Reading to Philadelphia, with Pottstown being one of those key stations. So if you're familiar with TOD planning, we look at this half-mile radius around the station, assess existing conditions, existing access, both from trail and bike and roadway. And we've done a lot of public outreach and open houses in Pottstown, and that work continues with them. An example of a TCDI funded project where we gave a grant to New Jersey Transit to do a study looking at the Pennsauken Transit Center. This is an intermodal transfer station that is both a River Line station as well as a Atlantic City commuter line station. So it's great that there's two lines coming together here. And New Jersey Transit worked with the township on access issues as well as looking at potential development sites. In terms of other assistance, because we are a transportation planning agency, we really care about these other, how do people get to transit? So those access points. And so we have a project called Expo that stands for Experimental Pop-ups, where we offer technical assistance to communities to design, implement, and measure demonstration projects. And these projects apply pedestrian, bike, and roadway strategies to improve safety and placemaking. And you can we do them anywhere in the region, but they often are near transit stations. And so some recent ones we've done have been in Norristown, Trenton, Collingswood, Westchester, and Media. This is an active program, so we do have a form on our website that we'll share that if you think you might have a project in your community that we can help with, we'd love to talk to you about that. One of my favorite tools that have been created over the years is our pedestrian portal, which is at walk.dvrpc.org. This is our region's sidewalk inventory and an interactive map. And its purpose is really to help communities build more sidewalks. This was a big undertaking to create this data set using high-res imagery and translating that into GIS. You can view the regional sidewalk map with three features: sidewalks, crosswalks, and curb ramps. You can also help us by getting an account and actually helping us edit the network and ground truth if there are sidewalks that are not mapped here, we'd love to hear about it. And then obviously you can use it to analyze the network. So what it looks like, here's the 9-county region, and here are all of our points and lines of where those sidewalks and crosswalks are. Obviously, you can zoom in then to see a specific area. So for instance, the Langhorne Station on the SEPTA Regional Rail West Trenton line, you'll see the station area here outlined in white dotted line, but you'll see the blue side. Blue is where there are sidewalks, pink are the crosswalks. Cumley Avenue, the station to the north, or I'm sorry, the street to the north of the station, you can see does not have sidewalks on either side, but generally Langhorne south of the station is doing well in terms of sidewalk access. And then we also have a lot of resources online, again, an interactive scoring called Access Score that scores transit stations on how accessible they are by driving, walking, and biking. And that will give you a composite score of your station. And then you can further refine that by looking at our pedestrian score that uses our sidewalk network up to a mile around the station to see how far you can walk comfortably. And similarly, cycle score that uses our bike level of traffic stress analysis to do that work. And then lastly, one that I think is also fun to explore is our park and ride passenger origins. So for every station in our region, we have data on trip origins for transit users that drive and park cars at train stations or park and ride lots in our region. So as another example, we have Langhorne here that we've zoomed into. In 2023, they had 87 cars a day drive and park at that station. And then you can look at the polygons and see those darker polygons are ones with more driver origins, and obviously showing that a lot of people are driving from fairly close by to the station. So I encourage you to play with that. Obviously, there's some other stations that have much larger numbers than 87. And so this chart on the bottom will be higher numbers. So that's a quick run through I'll stop sharing now. That's a very quick whirlwind tour of some of our resources, but I'm going to now hand it over. If Jen Doherty has joined us, I'm not quite sure yet, but we are going to have Jen Doherty from SEPTA, who is our who is the manager of transit-oriented communities. Okay, no, she will follow Megan Massey. So Megan Massey will go first. She is our director of transit-friendly planning at New Jersey Transit and one of our partners that we do a lot of work with. So I will hand it over to Megan.
Thank you, Karen. Let me make sure. Oop. All right. Thank you so much. I'm just trying to share my screen. Uh, okay. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Um, Thank you and good morning, Karen. I really have to do a deeper dive into all of those resources that you just talked about because that's really cool. Thank you so much for inviting New Jersey Transit into this municipal exchange. It's a really great opportunity and a unique opportunity for municipalities to get together to learn from one another and see the different opportunities that you can have by working with your transit agency. So I have a packed agenda that I will just breeze sort of through, and we could always touch on things further in the panel discussion. But today I'll be talking a little bit about the transit-friendly planning program, the Transit Village Initiative in New Jersey, types of technical assistance that transit-friendly planning offers, and then we'll get into some of the technical assistance that we've done over the past few years, which is the Route 9 TOD planning work, gentle density, and then Karen touched upon the Pennsauken TCDI grant. And then we'll end with some real estate projects that are completed and currently being worked on. So what is transit-friendly planning? And let me move this little box of people. These are just a few of the building blocks of what is recommended for a transit-friendly place. It's more than just promoting TOD, it's prioritizing transit access and redevelopment that aligns with community needs. It's a planning concept that creates an environment around transit facilities such as bus stops, bus terminals, rail or light rail stations, and supports and encourages transit use. The TFP, so you'll hear me exchange transit-friendly planning and TFP. It's the same thing. The TFP program is dedicated to strengthening the link between public transit and land use through the 6 program goals that are aligned with Transit's 10-year strategic plan. The 5 pillars of the TFP program encompass a lot of our day-to-day work in the effort to ensure that New Jersey Transit supports the development of transit-friendly communities. You'll see in Pillar 4, it's the transit-friendly data application. Please check it out. It's a GIS mapping tool where you can look at census data, Mod 4 data, transit lines, and you can find all of it at transitfriendlydata.org. So in 2022, which feels like a lifetime ago now, we updated the Pink Book, and it's the Transit-Friendly Planning Guide. As you all know, similar to Pennsylvania, New Jersey is a very diverse state, and while no 2 communities are the same, the guide describes 5 place types to address the range of density surrounding most transit facilities in New Jersey. The place types are meant to help create transit-friendly places in a variety of communities across the state. You'll see we go from urban center all the way to rural place, and we give different recommendations on each place type. And so it's important to keep in mind that a place type may change over time and that guidance from multiple place types may be applicable. So I'll dive into the Transit Village Initiative. For those who are unaware of it, it's a partnership between New Jersey Transit and NJDOT that was created in the 1990s. It helps local communities grow through compact mixed-use development, specifically around transit facilities. It incentivizes redevelopment and revitalization, reduces traffic, increases, hopefully, transit ridership, and brings more housing and employment opportunities. Currently, there are 37 transit villages in New Jersey, and that there are 3 located in the DVRPC region, and those are Collingswood, Riverside, and Burlington City. This is like the six items that are part of the designation process, and the one that's like the most featured and the most focused on is the ability for the municipality to adopt a TOD redevelopment plan or TOD zoning ordinance. So annually, through local aid in New Jersey, the Transit Village Initiative is programmed for $1 million+ every year, and eligible projects include bike bed paths, bike route signs, wayfinding signage, streetscape beautification, and traffic calming. Going into the technical assistance that we at New Jersey Transit provide, we do basically everything that a town is interested in doing that has a transit facility. We do TOD vision plans, zoning analysis, redevelopment studies, market analysis, feasibility. And so getting into the Route 9 TOD planning technical assistance, and Vina in Old Bridge, the township planner, will be talking about it in more detail during the panel discussion. But we received FTA planning funds for this 21-mile corridor. If you're unfamiliar with Route 9, it's a very robust bus corridor with express service to Port Authority Bus Terminal in New York. And we did visioning transit-oriented development at 3 sites along this corridor. Old Bridge Park and Ride was one of the TOD vision sites. And so you'll see the T, that's where the Park and Ride is located. And Old Bridge has a New Jersey Transit properties as well as um, a vacant, semi-vacant retail establishment. And so using our strategic toolkit, we were able to identify spots for TOD neighborhood, TOD infill, and then selective redevelopment for commercial. I'm really rolling through this. The next one is gentle density. We worked with IMEG on this project to prepare a gentle density guide for New Jersey transit villages. And then we took a deeper dive and looked at Metuchen to see how we could update their zoning around the Metuchen station to include missing middle housing types. So I'll briefly go into what is missing middle housing. It's a housing type that is compatible in scale with single family or transitional neighborhoods and usually structures between 2 and 12 units. And then gentle density is the policy that allows for missing middle housing development. It encourages context sensitive design to create new projects into the existing built environment. And so, what a gentle density allows for is housing choice. You can get a diversity in housing cost, create generational housing, access to transportation choices. It's all about location and maintenance. And so, if interested, we have a guide on our transit friendly website that goes over the opportunities for communities for gentle density and how to implement it, along with examples and zoning considerations. So in this guide, you'll see some of the types of gentle density, so the cottage core quadplex, fourplex, and multiplex, and then some of the planning and zoning considerations. So you can get a variable lot standard instead of the kind of mandated like 10-foot setback. There's varying degrees. You can have different building types and use standards. And then there's special consideration for accessory dwelling units in terms of how do you want them to be? Do you want them as short-term rentals or owner occupied? So there's a lot of great information if your town is interested in gentle density missing middle. Now onto the TCDI program, and I know right now it's the Pennsylvania side, the opportunity to submit applications. I strongly encourage you to submit if your municipality is interested in looking and exploring, looking at or exploring TOD. We were really excited to receive this grant through DVRPC to look at the Pennsauken Transit Center. It's a multimodal transit center. There was municipal interest in transit-oriented development, and what was interesting is that it had both the underutilized parking lot at the Pennsauken Transit Center that's transit-owned, along with a few parcels that were public, municipally owned that they were interested in developing. So the purpose of this project was to guide Pennsauken through the TOD visioning, look at the feasibility of select sites, and then provide recommendations for TOD, station area circulation, and placemaking. And then this is just a brief overview of our visioning process. We did the background research, had 2 public meetings, looked at the station area analysis, created initial scenarios, and then went into the final development scenarios and created a final plan for Pennsauken. And so, as Karen mentioned before, these are the five sites that we looked at, and Site A is the transit-owned property, and then the other sites are either county, I don't know why this keeps on flipping, either county or owned by Pennsauken. And these were overview of recommendations. We created different development scenarios, access and circulation, like curb extensions, dynamic speed feedback signs, and then looking at creating a sense of place, along with like bike accommodations and bike parking. And we're excited to say that, once the vision was completed by the transit-friendly planning team, we created a matrix of potential partners and funding sources. And the real estate office at New Jersey Transit is actively working with Pennsauken to move this into a redevelopment plan, and then get a designated developer, at least for the transit-owned parking lot. And just to wrap up, these are the real estate sites. The Orange Station was completed in December 2022. Somerville Station was completed in 2023, and we are currently working on Metro Park, and Hoboken Connect. So what's different about the TOD office, we're under the same department, we're in the same department, but the TOD office looks directly at sites that are owned by transit, whereas transit-friendly planning looks at the half-mile station access and beyond, to create transit-friendly planning recommendations. And then, if you haven't heard, New Jersey Transit just put out the land plan, which is leveraging assets for non-fare box dollars. We worked with HRNA and Arup to look at the potential of 1.9 billion in non-fare box revenue, potentially generated over 30 years from the 8,000 acre real estate portfolio we have. And for actual TOD, there are 800 acres that have been identified, that might be available for TOD, retail, warehousing, solar power, and wetland banking. I know that I ran through all of that. It was a lot of information, and I hope we have a chance to discuss further in the panel discussion. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Megan. And next, we'd like to turn it over to Jennifer Doherty, Manager of Transit-Oriented Communities at SEPTA. Jennifer, please feel free to take it away.
Thanks, Andrew. And thank you all for having myself and Megan this morning. So let's see if I can get this presentation started. We all good here?
Looks good to me.
Oh my goodness, first try. Well, thank you once again. Just want to do a quick introduction to SEPTA's Transit-Oriented Communities program. And I think the first thing to start off with, I think very similar to New Jersey, is that we're really lucky to have inherited a great transit system and network from our predecessor organizations, that existed throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. And not only did we inherit rail lines from the Pennsylvania Railroad or Riding Railroad, or in New Jersey of Lackawanna, we have all the land use patterns that have built up along those lines. And when we talk to our agencies across the country, they're very jealous of us that we already have this pre-existing walkable, dense communities throughout our service areas that are filled with small towns and communities and neighborhoods that have a variety of housing, strong downtowns and main streets. And we don't have to kind of start from scratch in a very auto-oriented or auto-centric place and then make it walkable unnecessarily. We can do infill. We have great bones. And so our program works with partners to further transit supportive land use, urban design and development that reinforces the major investments that we're making into our SEPTA system. And just to kind of reinforce this point of how fortunate we are, is that 45% of the 5 county population that lives within 45% of the 5-county population lives within a half-mile of rail and frequent SEPTA transit. So that's Bucks, Delaware, Chester, Montgomery, and Philadelphia. And that's almost 2 million people living on only 10% of the land, which just really reinforces how transit-oriented we are in the Philadelphia region in SEPTA service area. And that 80% of people that use SEPTA services walk or roll to their station or stop. If SEPTA was dependent on our parking spaces for our ridership, well, there would be no SEPTA. So we kind of acknowledge that we have these great bones, and that is really easy to measure. And so in the past, SEPTA really hasn't been a part of the conversation when it comes to land use, zoning, development, even though these things greatly affect people's ability to conveniently and easily take SEPTA or SEPTA to benefit from development that is transit supportive near our services. And we've been asked for a long time to participate in planning processes, policies, zoning, review or weigh in on proposed developments such as self-storage right next to our train stations, where in the past we wouldn't say anything. But the TOC guidelines enable us now to have a voice, to have a seat at the table around those topics. And the guidelines provide clear goals and strategies, illustrative station area and corridor typologies, and a strong implementation framework. And this is all really built off of a lot of the previous work DVRPC has done for SEPTA and for the region. We stole, I mean, we built upon the work that DVRPC did and the language we did. And many thanks to Andrew in particular for helping us build a case for this program and for these policies at SEPTA. Without DVRPC, we most certainly would not have this program. The guidelines set out 3 goals, which is foster people-first communities, increase mobility through seamless transit, walking, and micromobility trips, and create economic opportunity by allowing more people to live and work near transit. And the goals are supported by strategies that encourage compatible new development, adaptive reuse, and capital improvements. I'm not going to read out all the strategies to you. And then we apply the strategies to these typologies. And the reason we develop these typologies is not only because lots of other places have developed typologies, it is really to kind of counteract some of the concerns that people or elected officials or neighborhoods might have about transit-oriented development, that it's all going to look like University City. It's all going to look like Center City, Philadelphia. And what we're trying to say is that it's context sensitive, and that development intensity really reflects the frequency of transit services, the number of transit services that are available to you, community walkability, and the quality of micromobility connections. And the different typologies have different strategies on parking, building height, lot coverage, mix of uses, etc. And not to go through all of our typologies, but just as a quick kind of visual, what do these look like? So for urban neighborhood, this is what you might picture around an L or a B line station. We have infill development with ground floor commercial, apartments above. And then in our town center, where we have a regional rail station and we have, maybe one bus route serving it, we have a very similar building in terms that it's mixed use. But the difference is that there's structured parking included in it, where we might not have that in a super dense urban environment, where there may be no parking requirements because of the frequency of services. If you have an L train coming every 5 minutes, that's really different than hourly regional rail service in terms of how can people live with reduced vehicle trips. And then we also have, if you are in a more suburban context than a town center, which you might imagine like an Ambler, we also feel like there can be supportive infill development in these communities too, and we wanted to visualize what that looked like, and that may be more stacked townhouses with surface parking, for instance. And we also wanted to talk about in our guidelines is that we want to be able to support land use and zoning around our high frequency surface transit corridors, our buses, our trolleys, because these are the neighborhoods where people really can live car free when you have these high frequency routes that come along, even if there isn't a big old train station somewhere. So that TOD doesn't mean necessarily have to mean fixed rail service with a large train station every half mile or so, that we can think about these corridors and make sure that they are transit supportive and they are walkable and that they support the high frequency services that we have. We also developed a very strong implementation framework, and this is kind of directly, even the symbols are directly lifted from previous DVRPC work, and our 3 areas of implementation or implementation umbrella includes partner and sponsor, which is TOC projects on agency-owned land, coordinate and facilitate TOC projects on non-SEPTA-owned land, and plan and advocate for TOC at the regional and local levels. So for plan and advocate, this is where SEPTA encourages and supports TOC goals and strategies beyond our properties. So we, SEPTA, can provide best practices research for your community. We can provide TOC's zoning code language review and analysis, and participate as a stakeholder on county, regional, and local TOD or TOC plans. We're kind of not at NJT levels where we can undertake that half-mile planning and help you become a transit-friendly community, but we can certainly provide technical services and plug into work that you already want to undertake or help you reach. If you want to think about applying for a TCDI grant, we can help undertake some research for you, sit on a steering committee. For coordinate and facilitate, this is SEPTA supporting TOC projects in station areas on non-SEPTA owned land. So this is about adjacent development. So for instance, with the city of Philadelphia, we've been working closely with the Planning Commission on zoning code language changes that would enable more folks to take advantage of a floor area ratio bonus to then take advantage of additional height or density in exchange for making improvements to transit. So far, that's only been taken advantage of by Comcast towers, and we would love to see that spread out in other neighborhoods, but the code language is really hard to use and administer. So we're trying to work with the city and we can work with other municipalities and kind of encouraging these kinds of developments that aren't on SEPTA land, but we are still providing those services. We can provide letters of support or concern if necessary for projects in and around our station areas and provide developer services. And then finally, what you think of as probably everyone imagines as what is a TOC program or a TOD program, Transit Development Program. SEPTA initiates joint development projects on SEPTA-owned property. So we look at properties that have higher development potential, larger parcels, supportive plans and zoning, and strong municipal partners. And those 2 things are really important for us because if we don't have those 2 things, it's really not feasible to push ahead on projects, even on SEPTA-owned land, without a supportive environment. And then from there, we create stationary concepts that create a case for why TOC development. We employ community involvement, and then it enables SEPTA to solicit proposals through a competitive and transparent selection process. So we have a few projects that are in our joint development pipeline. Currently for Conshohocken Station and for Ambler Station, we are in the developer selection and award stage. We have web pages for both of those projects on our TOC website, which I can drop a link to. We are currently in the land entitlements stage for Germantown Station, our Shelton Avenue properties there. We have a web page for that. We've been working closely with Swarthmore through their comp plan process on advancing a potential joint development across SEPTA and Swarthmore College on land. And we are currently in the concept development phase for Langhorne Station, our Palatine Crew Quarters site, which is in West Philadelphia, and our Mifflin Substation site in South Philadelphia. Langhorne Station currently has a web page, and hopefully shortly Mifflin Substation will have a web page as well. And I'm sorry to have flown through that, but if you have any questions, there's my email address if you want to just send me any inquiries in addition to our discussion today.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you, Megan. Those are great presentations and a lot of useful information in there. If you do have questions for Jen or Megan, please use the Q&A function on the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to get to it during the upcoming discussion portion of the meeting. Once again, my name is Andrew Svekla. I manage DVRPC's Office of Smart Growth, which means I've had the pleasure of working with Jen and Megan and some of their peers at the transit agencies, and many of you. I see a lot of familiar names and faces as panelists or as attendees here today. And so it's great to see so many people join this conversation about transit-oriented development. And a broader welcome to our second DVRPC Municipal Exchange. If this is your first exchange, just want to remind folks that this is a chance to really get for municipal staff and officials to learn more about DVRPC and network with DVRPC staff, and also learn from their peers. So I wanted to preside over a panel discussion that features four municipal leaders here. And we really chose folks who help to represent the full spectrum of planning and building around transit. And our goal here is really to highlight the various ways, kind of bring the programs that Megan and Jen discussed, bring them to life by sharing sort of municipal experiences and perspectives around them from the folks who are on the ground, working with transit agencies and other partners to either investigate transit-oriented development, promote it, or implement it. And you'll hear that from our speakers. They're in various stages of these. And so I expect that many of you in the audience will be able to identify with one or more of our presenters. And ultimately, we hope to inspire you to think a little bit differently and begin to wonder or reconsider how you might think about leveraging the transit access and assets in your community. So I'm very happy to be joined today by Jean Sorg. She's the mayor of Ambler, Pennsylvania. Veena Sawant, who's the Director of Planning and Development for Old Bridge, New Jersey. That's Middlesex County, New Jersey, so slightly outside of the DVRPC region, but it's a community and a context that I think will be very recognizable to folks who are used to Southern Jersey and our portion of the region. David Boonin, welcome to Borough Council member from Swarthmore Borough. And Jim Ennis, Director of Building and Zoning from Middletown, Pennsylvania. That's in Bucks County. And so I just wanted to start off, and we'll start with Jean in just a moment, to invite each panelist to sort of tell the audience a little bit more about your municipality's context, where you are in sort of this process of thinking about your transit resources, and then maybe give us a little bit of information about how you've begun to think about, plan, or build TOD. And so with that, Jean, please take the mic.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this. Anytime I get to speak about my favorite subject, Ambler, I am happy to, and my second favorite subject, transit, I'm extremely happy to. So I want to thank you and say good morning to everyone. I am extremely lucky to be the mayor of Ambler Borough in Montgomery County. And I often say that Ambler's past, present, and future is tied to rail. Before the rail arrived in 1855, yes, I'm going to tell you a story because that's what I do. The farmers and tradespeople relied on dangerous roads to reach Philadelphia's markets. Now we would call that the Schuylkill, I guess. Obviously, rail would be much better than that. Rail changed everything for Ambler. It allowed Ambler's mills and farms to compete nationally. Even our grist mill was competing with the strong mills, flour mills of Minneapolis, and it sparked rapid growth. Within a decade, housing boomed as people recognized the value of living near a station. 20 years later, manufacturing would define the town. In 1888, Ambler Borough was incorporated and named after the rail station that was named after a Quaker heroine, Mary Ambler, making us one of the few municipalities actually named after a woman. This mill town, founded by Quakers with an ethos of tolerance and peace, grew into a diverse and integrated manufacturing community. Neighborhood shops dotted nearly every corner. Butler Avenue thrived with commerce and entertainment. Ambler's reputation had grown so much that that the county fair was moved to our little borough of less than 1 square mile. And the railroad would add another line so that they could handle the 13,000 visitors that would come to the fair. I can only imagine the absolute chaos in less than 1 square mile. However, the good times wouldn't last. Manufacturing closures and the rise of malls in the 80s hollowed out the borough. Ambler declined. And for a time, parents warned their children not to venture to those mean streets of Ambler. But even in those years, Ambler never lost the bones that would allow it to rise again. Today, Ambler is once again a regional destination, known for its vibrant downtown, restaurants, a restored 1928 Warner Brothers Theater, live professional theater, small businesses, major events, diverse housing, and most importantly, great people. And at the heart of it all is what we are here for today, mass transit and rail. Our station and 2 bus lines connect us to Philadelphia, jobs, colleges, medical care, and even international travel. And Jen, we will talk about renaming it the Ambler International Train Station someday. With rail and bus service, residents and visitors alike can work, shop, dine, and celebrate without the use of a car. Because of this access and the amenities we provide, our housing is highly desirable. Throughout our toughest years, Ambler had leaders who understood the long-term value of redeveloping along the rail corridor. Planning efforts from the late 90s into the early 2000s laid the groundwork for true transit-oriented development. In 2008, State Representative Rick Taylor and State Senator Stu Greenleaf worked with Governor Rendell to provide $4 million in RCAP funding to remediate and redevelop the Boiler House site. The long hours and hard works were paying off, and they ultimately culminated into the completion of the Ambler Transit Revitalization Investment District study of 2011. I am so deeply grateful to everyone who worked on that effort, because reading that study gave a new mayor big ideas. In 2014, with a dream in my heart and a train ticket in my pocket, I set off to SEPTA headquarters, where I would meet a fellow dreamer and a person I would come to absolutely adore, Jen Dougherty. I hope you don't mind me calling you a dreamer, because I know you're a planner. And the SEPTA team to discuss what more could be done with the big black impervious cover of SEPTA land right smack in our downtown. You should know I am not a fan of big swaths of underutilized impervious coverage in areas with stormwater issues, and that's what it is. Sometimes dreams take time. It was probably 8-9 years later that Jen would call to let me know that SEPTA was ready. And I was like a young George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, hot dog, right? So excited. From there, things moved quickly. In January 2024, SEPTA held a community town hall. Residents spoke clearly about stormwater management, affordability, mixed-use development, and maintaining Ambler's character. And I really have to say, what a breath of fresh air that a developer would come in and actually ask the community what's important to you. Those of us in these communities that people want to develop in, we don't get that very often. So that was a wonderful thing that happened in January 2024. By March, SEPTA brought proposed changes for our redevelopment overlay district to Borough Council. Council sent the proposals to our Planning Commission, which, alongside the county planner and our own planning guru, Glenn Kuchar, produced a draft ordinance in months. Revisions were returned to Council by August 2024, including development bonuses, expanded uses, and design standards, and Council approved them. In 2025, SEPTA issued an RFP for the site. Proposals are now in, and I am so excited for what's ahead. No pressure there. No pressure, Jen. As with everything that works in Ambler, this happened because people worked together. I couldn't be more grateful for all the borough staff, past and present, elected officials, past and present, planning commissions, past and present, and public for their input, and SEPTA. Transit-oriented development is never about one project or one player. It is about alignment and patience and a shared belief in place. Rail built Ambler once. With intention and partnership, it's helping us build again. Thank you so much, Andrew.
All right, terrific. Thank you so much, Jean, for tracing that evolution and the nature of your partnership with SEPTA. Once again, if you have questions for Jean or Jennifer on that experience, please think about them, add them to the chat. And now I want to switch gears to New Jersey and also switch gears in terms of mode. When we talk about TOD, we don't have to be thinking exclusively about rail. We're looking for quality transit service in any form that it takes. And so Vina Sawant is here representing Old Bridge, New Jersey. Vina, are you ready to tell us a little bit about your partnership with New Jersey Transit and some of your experiences?
Sure. Thank you, Andrew. Good morning, all, and thank you, DVRPC, for inviting me as a speaker. Like most of the panelists here, I'm quite passionate about Transit Village. And before I start sharing my screen, I just wanted to give you a background that actually Old Bridge is in Middlesex County and has had a bus terminus for the longest time. So when I became the planning director, I had my eyes really set on this one area, which was underutilized, struggled with vacancy. And this area is a classic example of the planning of the 70s, where you have a sea of asphalt, empty parking lots, and then your retail buildings are so far set back that you can't even see them when you're traversing on the corridor. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me for a second. So I'm going to... All right, here we go. So actually, it all happened when we started seeing a lot of vacancies in this area right here. I hope you can see my cursor. Like explained, this is Route 9 corridor. We have a huge commercial complex here, but unfortunately, and then it's actually, the area is also bisected by Milletta Way, which is the connection to our southbound NJ Transit bus stop. So the northbound bus stop is right here. That's the bus terminus. This is our municipal commuter parking lot. And then the southbound is right here in this corner. And Milletta Way actually connects this to the southbound commuter parking lot. Unfortunately, with the buildings being so far set back, this commercial complex is kind of dying in the sense it struggles with vacancy all the time. The main anchors here are BJ's, and there is a storage facility here, and then the Kohl's shopping center. Everything else, it's quite transient, where you have a Spirit Halloween or a pizzeria that is on and off in the areas, or used only for a few months of the year. But as you can see from this image itself, the parking lot is empty. And when I saw this and I came aboard as a planning director, I thought it was a great opportunity. And this is almost 7 years ago that I reached out to Megan and I asked her if we can pursue a transit village designation, which is offered by NJDOT, and it's a joint venture with NJ Transit and NJDOT, and if I could pursue the designation. Now, it was the time before COVID, so I was able to get a pre-application meeting with NJ Transit, NJ DOT members of DCA, the mayor of the township, and I made a presentation, and everybody was quite excited that we are thinking of redeveloping this whole area with mixed-use development. What I heard from Megan at that point was this bus line has the highest bus ridership. Old Bridge is like the last stop before you go to New York City. It's only a 40-minute ride from Old Bridge Township to Port Authority, New York. And there are already commuter parking lots within the area, some that are owned by the township, but some that are owned by NJ Transit as well. So 3 years prior, so I'm talking about 2023, when NG Transit received FTA grants to develop a bus rapid system along this corridor, Route 9, and the study that was done focused on Howell Township to the south and then Old Bridge to the north. Old Bridge, like I said, is the last stop before you go to Port Authority. As I mentioned, it's a 40-minute bus ride. There are 10 NJ Transit bus routes along this corridor. There are 80 bus stops, and it's almost like 7,000 weekday boardings, and that was 2019 data. So I think the area offered enough ammunition for us as a township to make this a priority. I started working on the redevelopment study area because for those who are not familiar with NJ Transit, we have our local redevelopment and housing law, which requires you to conduct an area investigation study first to decide if the area qualifies as an area in need of redevelopment. And subsequent to that, a redevelopment plan is created. Creating a redevelopment plan, new zoning for this area was one of the priorities. Unfortunately, we all experienced COVID and the ridership went down, things slowed down. So I took a break. I started focusing on other redevelopment projects within the township. But again, it started catching momentum once FTA granted NG Transit the funding, and NG DOT started reaching out to me saying, "Are you still pursuing the Transit Village designation?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm not giving up. That is my baby since inception, and I do want to take it to the finish line." While I started working on this study, New Jersey had its next round of affordable housing. And this was one of the I think timing wise, it worked great for us because we were now stepping into the fourth round. The township had an adjusted affordable housing obligation of 673 affordable units. And to give you a background with Old Bridge has a lot of vacant land, but unfortunately, 95% of that vacant land is fully encumbered by wetlands. So we are disadvantaged. And in that sense, we are lucky because we have two main corridors. We have Parkway, we have Route 9, and then we have Route 35 State Highway, which is again a completely different story. It has the waterfront. So Old Bridge, in terms of planning, it's a planner's dream because you have bus transit, you have a waterfront, you have great connectivity with highways. So we were able to focus development in this transit-oriented area and come up with our affordable housing obligation because we had already conducted a vacant land analysis wherein we knew that there isn't enough developable land elsewhere. So now we just finished our affordable housing plan. We had blessings from the Fair Housing Center. We had 8 objectives. We were able to turn down majority of the objectives because we had a solid plan, and that was based on the transit-oriented development. Now, if you look at this area, this is the half-mile radius. This is again the bus stops. And what you notice is this is 100-acre parcel that is currently vacant. Then you have underutilized commercial complex that is on the northbound side. What you see in blue are NJ Transit commuter parking lots, and what you see in the yellow are township-owned commuter parking lots. Taking advantage of these assets, community assets, we decided to come up with a redevelopment plan to support our affordable housing and rezone this through the redevelopment planning process. So this lot here, which is 100 acres, we have an assigned density of 25 units per acre. We envision that there will be 1,500 units created in this location because some of the land is also constrained by wetlands and with easements by power lines. But we would have 300 affordable units created at that location. NJ Transit's commuter parking lots, I think they're teaming up with EDA to redevelop these sites into mixed-use developments as well. So that will help us with addressing our affordable housing need in addition to the 300 that would be created on the other side. And we have a rough estimate of 180 units on those sites with 36 affordable units. And I mean, if you are creating affordable units within a transit-oriented development, the affordable housing regulations allow you for a 0.5 bonus credit. So it's not just the credit that you get for the affordable housing unit, but you also get a 0.5 credit. And that helps us address almost 80% of our affordable housing obligation. So these now show the densities and the units. Again, on this 100-acre parcel, we also have a provision to create 26 special needs housing. Affordable housing regulations allow us to get a one-on-one bonus credit for any special needs housing that is created. And to give you a status, I know EDA is interested in the NJ transit-oriented sites, and on the other side, we have a contract purchaser for this property, which is K. Hovnanian. They have never actually built apartments, but they are working with us on creating a new model where they can team up with other developers to create apartments as well as stacked townhouses or townhouses in that 100-acre parcel to help us meet the affordable housing obligation. And then again, to Old Bridge advantage, we had an underutilized commercial area. We had vacancy within the half-mile radius of a very successful bus terminus with one of their higher riderships. We often have to struggle with parking because the township often gets requests from residents for permits. And we are hoping that with partnership between NJ Transit, NJ TOT, and the developers that come in, we would be able to move the commuter parking lot that is on the southbound side right here up front on Route 9 itself, and probably have a pedestrian bridge. Right now, Maleta Way is used by people to cross over from one side to other, but we are hoping that we will be able to rope in some great infrastructure improvements that allow for more pedestrian activity as well as encourage more bus ridership. I'll take any questions at this point.
Yeah, thank you, Veena. And actually, if you do have a question for any of our presenters, please add that to the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Thank you. That was a lot of information, and it's great to hear all the great work that's going on in Old Bridge.
Thank you, Andrew.
Sure. An early theme I'm hearing is, reach out early to your transit operators, get their opinion, plant those seeds, and you never really know where that conversation may take you. So thank you so much for that. I'd like to switch back to Pennsylvania. David Boonen is here representing the borough of Swarthmore. Could you tell us a little bit more about recent comprehensive planning efforts and the way you've tried to partner with SEPTA and the college in your community, David?
Absolutely. I'm David Poonen. I'm a member of Swarthmore's Borough Council for about the past 4 years and recently took over the position of chair of our Planning and Zoning Committee. And first, I'd like to say, wow, what a great set of panelists. In my 50 years of planning, I don't think I've ever experienced such a consistently informative set of panelists. I don't know if I can measure up. Well, back to Swarthmore and rail. Swarthmore Borough and commuter rail service have been entwined from before the borough's formation in the late 1890s, with a rail line dating back to the mid-1800s. Without our beloved train station, right on the edge of our town center and historic district, Swarthmore would be a very different place. Last year, the borough, a community of about 6,600, many of whom are college students, completed a periodic comprehensive plan. A significant part of that plan focused on a potential development of 2 parking lots just to the north side of the tracks, away from our town center. One is owned by SEPTA and is used by commuters, and an abutting lot is owned by the Swarthmore College and is used largely for student parking. SEPTA is a highly valued asset by the Swarthmore community and its members. As with the college, as part of a comprehensive planning process, representatives from our planning team directly engage with representatives from SEPTA. The comprehensive plan lays a foundation for SEPTA to advance concepts on these parking lots in association with the agency's Transit-Oriented Communities program. SEPTA presented to the community about the potential for transit-oriented development. They walked us through the main goals of transit-oriented development and introduced us to other transit-oriented development communities. The borough is committed to continued conversations with SEPTA to help realize the ideas put forth in our comprehensive plan for this site and to reinforce SEPTA's role as a critical provider of transit service to the community. Should also mention that in addition to the train station, we have a 109 bus line that goes right through the center of our community and a 107 on the edge. So, we also get bus service. The final comprehensive plan developed potential ideas and even produced schematics for 3 potential development strategies and numerous housing types, including mixed-use development and affordable housing. Given the community support for development of this site confirmed through our comprehensive planning process, we found that SEPTA, the college, and the borough should consider entering into a formal memorandum of understanding to guide collaboration, coordinate planning efforts, and to ensure a unified vision for the site's future. This should include coordination regarding walking, biking, and alternative transit options. This collaborative process has begun with additional input from the Delco Planning Commission, and I should say that based upon what we've heard today, we should get the DVRPC involved. While this group will play roles in shaping the vision and expectations for the site, actual development will likely be led by a different development entity, a developer. Our seriousness in addressing some of the transit-oriented development with SEPTA can be seen by our implementation step in our plan, recommending updating our zoning code to facilitate development. And based upon what I've heard here today, I planned out to reach the many on zoning code models that already exist to enable our vision for TOD to become a reality.
Terrific. Thank you so much, David. It's really great to hear about how people are using comprehensive planning processes and thinking about collaboration across agencies and across communities. I think that's really successful and really needed. A TOD isn't necessarily easy to build for a lot of the reasons we've been thinking about and hearing today. So it takes a lot of coordination. Next, our 4th speaker is Tim Ennis, here representing Middletown Township. Middletown Township has a somewhat unique place in that they are home to two different regional rail stations. Jim, do you want to talk about how your community has approached thinking about those assets?
Sure. First off, very tough act to follow when it comes to this panel. Hello, everyone. So Middletown Township, Bucks County, is in the lower Bucks area of Bucks County. It's midway in between Philadelphia and Trenton. There are some major corridors that run through it, like 295, Route 1, and 413. It does contain some large parts of Levittown, the Oxford Alley Mall, Sesame Place, as well as St. Mary's Medical Center. And as Andrew already touched on, there's two SEPTA stations that run along the West Trenton rail line. Woodburn Station, which is more kind of in the center to northwest area of the township, northeast, I'm sorry, area of the township, has a lot of constraints. I'm not going to get into all of them, but makes it very difficult for any kind of real TOD to be put into place at this current time. But Langhorne Station, which is more in the center to southwest area of the township, is pretty ideal. As Karen helped out with some images there earlier in her presentation, you can kind of get the context, see that the infrastructure is pretty much already there. It's kind of hard to describe how Langhorne Station is actually in Middletown Township just because of the weird, odd configuration of municipal boundaries. It actually is kind of separates Langhorne Manor Borough to the north and Pendle Borough to the south. Pendle, I think a lot of people think Langhorne Station's actually in Pendle Borough. And then I also just need to touch on just some further flavor to Middletown Township. 11 municipalities border on Middletown Township. So there's a lot of municipal partnerships that need to be established there. Now, as far as planning efforts, Jennifer kind of mentioned it as conceptual. That's very true. It's also in its very, very beginning stages. I probably could add a few more berries to that. It is recognized as far as TOD at Langhorne Station in the 2020 Comprehensive Plan for Middletown Township. It's also recognized as far as being consistent with the Bucks County Comprehensive Plan. There's also obviously the Station Area Concept Plan that's been developed by DVRPC and SEPTA that is available through SEPTA's website. And also Pendle Borough has made a lot of steps already in place as far as creating a TOD overlay district for those areas of Pendle Borough that neighbor or within the area of Langhorne Station. With that, when Jennifer touched on some of the things, the key ingredients, so to speak, that need to be put into place to get a TOD up and running, you already have the planning, as I already kind of covered. And you've got some decent municipal partnerships already established, especially when it comes to Langhorne Manor and Pendle. The biggest hurdle right now for Middletown Township, I think, when you talk about those key ingredients, is the zoning. There's no zoning in place right now for any kind of level of TOD, nothing for mixed use or anything else, as far as the split zone qualities of the zoning districts that do cover the Langhorne Station in Middletown Township. So that's one thing that definitely needs to occur in effort to get this development in place at a later time. Jennifer has done a great job at coordinating with representatives from DVRPC, SEPTA, Langhorne Manor Borough, Pendle Borough, and Middletown, all in effort to eventually have our first kind of public kickoff meeting sometime in March. I wish there was more I could probably add to that, but like I said, emphasis on very beginning. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, that's terrific, Jim. Thank you so much for those comments. And thank you to all of our panelists. You've done an excellent job of talking about your communities. And I hope that our attendees, I expect that they can identify with you on some aspect of what you've talked about, whether it's because they come from a similar type of community with similar history or context, or they've posed similar questions or had similar discussions with their citizens or their elected officials. So I'm really happy that we've been able to represent this broad spectrum of experiences and perspectives. We do want to save a couple of minutes for updates at the very end of the meeting, but right now it's time to ask questions of of our transit agency representatives or our municipal representatives. We've had a couple in the chat already, and one I wanted to throw to the group was, we all know that public engagement is really critical for how we think about change and managing change in our communities, particularly these older established communities can be really challenging. Does anyone have an example of sort of a public engagement opportunity that might be something different than a standard meeting, or a way that a standard meeting was really effective in talking about the future of a station or a station area, and wanted to share an experience around that?
I mean, I can go first and talk about our project in Pennsauken, and even Old Bridgevina. We actually had very robust engagement. But in Pennsauken, we like the standard, planning practice. We went to where the people are. And so we went to the Harvest Festival, which is a huge like October fall festival for the Pennsauken area. And we had boards set up about the project and really wanted to hear from the residents of what they would like to see, because it's a blank slate there. It's an underutilized parking lot. And so we got a ton of great feedback from people, and they were with their children, just going to the fair and to the festival. And so people had their guards down. It wasn't like they were going to a formal public meeting. And it was just like, we want to be similar to Collingswood. We want to have a place, a there. We would love to have a place for restaurants, and so that we don't have to go outside of Pennsauken. So I always think we do better. Unfortunately, the public meetings need to happen, but I think we always do better, at least in our projects, actually like getting on the street, putting up posters with QR codes for surveys, and going to town events to talk to communities.
Yeah, those are great comments, Megan. And I think meeting people where they are, we found to be a really effective strategy, and trying to bring the conversation and the issues to them. Everyone has opinions about these things. And so finding ways to get to them can be really beneficial. David, please add whatever you'd like.
Yes, in Swarthmore, during our comprehensive planning process, we had lots of meetings, but a lot of what we found is that we don't want to be talking to people. We want to be talking with people. We want to be hearing from them. And our consultant and our planning group created meetings where there was a lot of dialogue and a lot of breakout groups. And so instead of talking amongst 100 people, there'd be 12 groups of 8 people talking with each other and bringing ideas around these various topics, including transit-oriented development. And we found that to be a very useful way of gathering community input.
Yes, thank you for that. Anyone else want to chime in on this, or ways that they've been able to frame conversations with citizens about these issues, ways they've been able to make it can be hard to get people's attention in this day and age. And so ways that you've been able to make this feel like an issue that people have a stake in?
I think, Andrew, I'll chime in too, because what we had done is we used our website quite a lot, and we have our own TV channel. So we posted about the meetings that were, or the shreds that were being conducted. And I thought that really helped us get a lot of public participation, because the one good thing that COVID did was making these meetings virtual, just like this one, so that you can see a lot of public participation, especially when people are working or, they're commuting. It's easy to get on and, chime in. So we conducted, Megan, if I'm not mistaken, there were 3 of them that were conducted, and we had a lot of active participation from people, and very simple suggestions like we want heated bus stops, and crosswalks, sidewalks for us to walk in. They were very simple suggestions, but it was quite meaningful. So using your media, we have our Facebook account, we have our own channel, we have most of our meetings televised, and we also have links to YouTube. So we have YouTube Live, and we used all these resources to advertise to get in more public participation.
Yeah, I think we're hearing it, and we have found too to be that this communication is an ongoing process. You're never done. There is not
Yes.
a single meeting to be held. It's a constant conversation and back and forth with citizens and elected officials, and being available and open for those things. And oftentimes, people may not associate that improved crosswalk or bus shelter with transit-oriented development, but a lot of our emphasis is about providing access to stations, making or thinking about improvements that are win-win. A lot of the principles that guide transit-oriented development at and near stations provide benefits to people whether they ride transit or not. And so I
Right.
think,
In fact, we get requests, we get emails from residents asking, when is this happening? Like, when do we see the change? So people are actually anxious to see it redevelop and have that better connection to bus. So,
yeah, it's really interesting to think about a suburban land use context like that. That is recognizable to so many places in our region. So the efforts there are really something that we can follow. We did have another question in the chat from David speaking about Jenkintown. And we often hear that these places, especially in older communities, which are so common in greater Philadelphia, our community is built out. There really isn't room for something new. What we have is what we have, and change is hard. Would any of our panelists like to talk about how we approach redevelopment or thinking about change in places that are long established and people are used to things?
Well, you said Jenkintown, correct? You were just up the road, right? Ambler and Jenkintown are so similar in so many ways. We don't have development on green space. We don't have new development spaces. We share like Jenkintown, it's redevelopment and worried about how many EDUs they get and all that sort of stuff. And the
Jean, you dropped out audio for me for a second.
It says I've got low network bandwidth.
Oh, well, you're generally back.
Probably it's important that I get cut off. But the idea is it's not expecting, I think, that whatever changes might happen right then and there, but being prepared for them. One thing I have thought a lot about is our church communities. We see it like in Narberth when they closed a church. What happened with that? And starting to work on your planning and what that looks like in the future for these bigger spaces that may at some point look different. Church may look different in the future. So, and I know Jenkintown, like Ambler, has a lot of those spaces. What are we looking at for the future when churches combine? When they suddenly see these spaces, then no longer a need. We have 2 Catholic churches in Ambler, and there had been 2 Catholic schools as well. Neither of those schools exist anymore. One of the churches decided that they wanted to get a revenue from that school, and now that working with what we have in our books for what can be developed there, it's now houses a business there. It houses an architectural firm. So not necessarily thinking what's going to be there tomorrow, but saying, okay, we have, in my opinion, this is my opinion. I'm not an actual real planner. So please forgive me. I'm a dreamer and a mayor, right? Is looking at what may happen in the future, not this year, not even 10 years from now, but 20 years from now. You've got these big spaces. Community may not look what it looks like now, and say, what is that overlay? What can we put over the top and say that when this comes time when it needs to be redeveloped, what do we think is a good idea for the community? Anyway, I don't know that helped anyone, but that's just my 2 cents.
No, I think that could be a really great place to end, Jean. Thank you for that. I wanted to thank all of our panelists and presenters for participating today. I hope you've been able to identify with one of them. We have communities throughout our region who have had rail stations for longer than anyone can remember. We have communities that are thinking about new rail expansion, thinking about the Glassboro-Camden line. And we have places that have bus service. And so I think we run the gamut in terms of the ways the community can think about utilizing the transit infrastructure in their communities. Hopefully today you've been able to learn something or to think about this issue in a new way. If you want to continue this conversation, please reach out to us at DVRPC. I'll take the liberty of saying that our municipal representatives might be happy to chat with you if you had specific questions because you identify with them in some way. And Jennifer and Megan are always happy to hear from municipalities that host transit stations and transit lines as well. With that, I wanted to turn it over to Karen Salerso to wrap us up.
Thank you, Andrew. And thank you once again to everyone who joined us for this conversation today. We are grateful you were able to make it. While we still have your attention, I just want to reiterate some ongoing DVRPC programs and technical assistance that's available to our municipalities. First is our Municipal Help Desk. DVRPC is here to support your municipalities with planning, public engagement, data, grants, funding, implementation, and many other items. You can now visit our website and fill out a form and tell us about an issue you're having or where you need assistance. We'd love to hear from you, and a member of staff will contact you. As mentioned, I think in the presentation, the TCDI grant program is currently open for our Pennsylvania portion of the region. Those projects are due on March 13th. I encourage you to visit our website, and I see Alyssa is adding all these links into the chat as I speak. And then again, remind you, I think Karen Morris mentioned our Tactical Urbanism Program Expo, where we provide implementation for low-cost short-term transportation access programs. Again, all the information on our website, or you could go through the Municipal Help Desk. DVRPC also has an upcoming webinar on February 11th that may be of interest to our municipalities on exploring multi-municipal stormwater collaboration. A link is going to be added to the chat, or you can find it on our website. As we leave today's meeting, a short survey is going to pop up onto your screen, and we would love to hear your feedback so we can plan future events. And lastly, our next municipal exchange is scheduled for April 22nd. We hope you will join us in the spring. So with that said, thank you all so much, and stay warm.
Thank you.